A large trend is occurring in the modern world. People are becoming more cognizant of the importance of the pervasiveness of mental illness, expanding the definition of what it means to be mentally healthy. Mental health is becoming a big topic, but it is not something everybody knows how to deal with.
In just one high school, we see that there are many connections to not only mental illness on an intimate self-harming level, but also on a detrimental neurodegenerate level. Two teachers were interviewed, Mrs. McCutcheon and Miss Fallon, to speak on their various experiences and observations concerning detrimental mental illness in their families.
My mother had Alzheimer's disease for about 7 years. We started to see signs of it early.
What can you say about mental health?
Well, my experience is that my father had early onset Alzheimer's. And so when I was a teenager, when I was in high school, a lot of time was spent caring for him and dealing with his disease.
For the last 3 years of her life, our family were her caregivers. And then for the last year, when it became very, very debilitating, we stayed with her 24/7. The hardest part for my mother was, and the most frustrating part, was when she was at that part where she knew she was getting worse. It's actually easier for the patient once they don't realize that they no longer can't remember.
The epiphany that I had about mental health and how you can deal with mental health issues is that it really is about perspective.
I think anything, obviously from her earlier life, that sparked a memory just gave her true happiness. But I also think my mom's positive attitude before she was diagnosed, I think that contributed, and her progression was slow because she was so determined and so positive.
I think optimism and your personal attitude can also play a huge role in mental health. In my own experience, because my father had two siblings, and one of his siblings suffered with depression for most of her life, and now she also has Alzheimer's. And then another sibling was the epitome of optimism, a lifelong athlete, and he somehow has no symptoms. He hasn't developed the disease. And I feel like that does play a role, and more research on Alzheimer's and mental health is saying that even though genetics plays a huge role, our outlook, our perspective can affect that as well.
Music made her so happy, and even at the end, when she wasn't responding verbally to music, you could see her move her foot or move her leg. And early on in her diagnosis, old familiar songs, she would remember the lyrics, she would sing the lyrics, she would clap her hands, and it brought her great happiness, which brought us great happiness.
That even when suffering from a disease like that, he was still capable of happiness. Even at the very, very end, he had always loved music, and hearing songs or hearing singing or whatever it was would still make him smile, even really right at the very, very end.
And not wait to be active, but to always make sure that both physically and mentally they're challenging themselves. I remember reading that whatever is good for the heart is good for the mind.
It takes time. It takes energy. It takes reaching out and searching for what works for them in regards to staying healthy, and that's mentally and physically.
Mental health can be so debilitating, and it goes across socioeconomic lines. Nobody is excused from it. I think what else helped my mother endure her illness was, as I said before, her positive attitude, but also her willingness to interact with others. And she was always interested. She always engaged in conversation. She wanted to learn.
The more awareness, the more time they spend getting to know themselves and resources that are out there, better off they'll be.
It frightens me about youth being so isolated and the lack of interaction And the inability to pick up the phone and call someone, or to, like I said, engage in a conversation with constantly looking at the dependence on the phone. It makes me sad, and it makes me think that they really are missing out, and that isolation can be very harmful, and it can prevent you from living a real positive, fulfilling life.
If people are able to look at their situations and find gratitude in their experiences, in their life, it adds to their ability to be happier. It's definitely challenging at a younger age to understand gratitude, but if they start, it can be life-changing.
You know, one, we have to take happiness wherever we can find it, but also that your perspective, the amount of optimism that you have, how you approach life can play a huge role in mental health. And that, you know, even when things seem horrible, even when things seem insurmountable, if you put things in perspective and you know, you kind of have this attitude that you can overcome it, that there can be something better in the future, I think that can play a huge role.